Hi, everybody. I have a little presentation for you in the form of slides that I want to introduce. This is about Chapter 1 in the Understanding ECE Environments, Creating Environments for Young Children text that we have. And the most important part is actually the beginning. So it talks a lot about understanding the importance of the environment. And we all know how environment might impact us. Some of us like, for instance, going to a very busy mall where there are a lot of people, and some of us don't really care for that kind of thing. Some of us have comfortable and relaxing environments where we live, and some of us have hectic and active ones. So it all has to do with the circumstances and the preferences of the people that are involved and how we set up our environment. For young children, because we set their environment up, it's really important for us then to make sure that we understand what the impact is and that we plan accordingly. So as we look at environments, we want to know how what we do will impact children's learning when we are working in the environment. This statement by Albert Einstein kind of sets a tone. All that is valuable in human society depends upon opportunity for development accorded the individual. So what we're doing is we are providing that opportunity by manipulating the environment so that it helps to promote learning. So you can see, if you look at the words here that I have on the slide, there's a lot of time that children spend in early childhood settings, and so much so that they probably spend more time in school than they do at home for the most part, at least for part of the year. So that means that those environments need to be helpful and nurturing. They need to be supportive and promote learning. And one of the things that we talk about in early childhood, of course, is play-based learning. And you say, well, yeah, I know, but we need to have a lot of things that we teach children so that they'll be ready for the next school, for the next level, etc. But really, the best research has proven that play is how we learn best, all of us. Lillian Katz said, provide lots of opportunities for children's natural curiosity to manifest itself. With very young children, our role is one of supporter and guide. It doesn't say instructor, teacher. It's more like a facilitator role, according to Lillian Katz. So we all know that play promotes all of those things that are listed here. But most of us are not willing to give up the idea that play actually is the way that children learn best. So play is a vehicle for optimal cognitive development. All right. How do we do that? Well, basically what that means is that we have to set up that environment so that children can learn by manipulating it. So whatever we put into the environment is going to be what children learn through. If we put minimal things in, then children will learn minimal things. If we put lots of rich and exciting content into our environments, then that's what they're going to learn. So let's keep going here. Let's talk about how important this is. So on the left-hand side, it says a well-designed environment supports developmentally appropriate practices through all of those things that are listed there. So when we talk about developmentally appropriate practice, we want to know that it is the optimal thing that we can do for young children. It's a concept that we want to try and uphold in early childhood. number one and most important in an early learning setting nowadays, with the number of children that are in there and the long periods of time that they have to spend, is providing an effective environment that supports positive behaviors. So how do you do that? You want to make sure that you have activities that will help children to manage their emotions, to interact with each other appropriately, that helps to de-stress them. We need some private spaces where they can kind of hang out if they get too stressed out. I used to joke when I was a young mother that the only place that I got any peace and quiet was in the bathroom. Well, that's not necessarily true for all of us, is it? So, we all seek that quiet place that we need to have just to chill for a little while. Children need that in their early childhood environments as well. So here's here's the information that we have from our early childhood researchers and experts. Piaget, Vygotsky, Steiner, Montessori, one of my favorite people, and Loris Malguzzi, and you may recognize that person's name from the Reggio Emilia information that I gave you. This information is, you can read for yourself, and it's supportive of the idea that the environment is primary in education. Also, as far as outcomes goes, you want to have an effective environment that supports all initiatives, so early childhood through your early grades in public school as well. So here's a slide that I like. This is a place where children can explore with light tables. These are light refracting tables. And the light shines through the glass and children can play on top of it. So, this is not something that you would think that you would put in an early childhood classroom. And you might think that it's kind of a silly thing to have. But what are the kinds of things that you think children can learn through this experiment with light and dark? How does that light help children to learn ideas, concepts, things about themselves and each other? How does the idea of adding mirrors to play do the same thing? What do the mirrors do for them? And those things are maybe things that you don't typically have in your early childhood classroom, but are things that help to make that environment rich as opposed to poor and minimal. So when we're designing those interesting classrooms, we want to make sure that they're developmentally appropriate, that it meets the children's individual developmental needs and interests. So we're going to have children that are in a range of development. They may be the same age, but they may have different developmental needs. Some children move faster in some areas and some children move slower. So we need to meet those needs. We want to be sensitive about cultural issues and backgrounds. We want to have high curriculum standards and early learning guidelines, and we want to be sure that we have a very clear understanding of what our philosophy and our program philosophy is, and if they match or they don't match, what our practice is. So in our environment, the teacher is the one who is available and for the most part responsible for putting together the environment. And we're the driver of the vehicle. So we want to make sure that we design some places inside of our environment where children can learn. And typically we call those learning centers. We want to make sure that those learning centers have an abundance of things to do. we all know that what happens when children get bored is that they tend to go find something to sometimes get them in trouble. And then, of course, there are transitions that help children move through the day, and we need to be good about planning those as well. Those are also part of the environment. So, in looking at how the teacher needs to interact with children, we want to use a scaffolding approach. And basically, what Vygotsky said was, scaffolding is holding a children in the place where they are as far as development and learning goes, and then presenting more information in addition to that to help to raise them to the next level. So providing a challenge that's based on where they are developmentally. As far as all of those things that we talked about, their cultural background, temperament, etc. Our job is also extending learning. So children are going to learn through play, but we're going to be right there to help extend their learning. We don't just leave kids alone and let them muck about, which is fun, but it's not necessarily the best thing. As far as our job goes, what we're supposed to be doing is to observe, pay attention, listen, watch, and help to pull that stuff out of children, pull that information out of children that helps them to think critically and move on developmentally. So that's our job. So we're really hoping to build on that environment to make those things that we made available actual tools for learning by helping children to synthesize that information and process it. We can do that by, I like the whole thing about, you can go back here a little bit, helping children to plan and recall experiences. So this is a really important part of the day that we don't talk about sometimes, is that children need to be planning, and they need to then refresh by recalling what they've done. So often what we do is we just have a schedule where we have them do specific things at specific times, and we don't allow for that time to process or plan. And planning is part of that processing. Their brains are going to click when they plan to do something and then are able to accomplish it. So, and then, one of the important things too is to help families to understand that, they don't see children just playing all day. They just need to understand a little bit more about what that is. And so our job is to help explain that to parents and other family members in a way that helps them to understand what it is that we're looking for. So finally, I have a quote here by Maria Montessori. Imagine Maria Montessori it has her name on I think it's the Lira note in Italy. So she's very well known and revered as an educator there. But she says, the first lesson we must learn is that the tiny child's absorbent mind finds all of its nutriment in its surroundings. Here it has to locate itself and build itself up from what it takes in. Especially at the beginning of life, must we, therefore, make the environment as interesting and attractive as we can. So that says it all right there. Here's some sources that I used, of course, Creating Environments for Learning, Birth to 8. And some quotations here. And, of course, all of the great knowledge that comes from being involved in early childhood education for, over some 30-odd years. And I can't pull that down any farther, so you really can't see, but I got my images off of a place called pixabay.com. So just a note, when you're putting things together, to be sure to you know, include your sources for imaging as well. All right, I think that's it.